Good morning. We have been talking about anxiety and the peace of God. And from Philippians chapter 4, kind of how Paul mixes it up with looking at the peace of God. Don't be anxious about anything, but in everything pray with thanksgiving. And the peace of God will guard your hearts and minds in Christ Jesus. And think about these things. That's what's in between. And the God of peace will be with you. And there's some very interesting dynamics that go with this. I remember when I was a young believer, I was reading a book by an 18th century French bishop named Francois Fenelon. And Fenelon suggested that we should never make decisions when we're anxious because we don't do our best thinking when we're anxious. And that's a paraphrase, but I think that's the gist of it. And I think you would agree with me that when we're anxious, a lot of times our thought processes are just not very good. And so we need to calm ourselves down, maybe get a little bit of distance between what we are actually anxious about, and then begin to process what it is that we're actually anxious about and what it is that we're trying to make a decision for. So it reminds me of the story in Luke chapter 10 of Martha and Mary. Remember that Jesus comes to, these are Lazarus' sisters, Martha and Mary. Jesus comes to have some dinner at their house, and Martha's just all busyfied and everything. She's trying to get everything right and just wants to make sure that the meal is perfect and everything for Jesus. And Mary is just sitting there quietly listening to what Jesus has said. And Martha just gets just like, Jesus, you don't you see that my sister's not doing anything and I'm doing all the work? And Jesus says, Martha, Martha, you're worried and upset about many things, but only one thing is important. Interesting that Martha's anxiety and her worry in this is actually keeping her from choosing what is really the best thing. And so the message for today basically is, when you're anxious, slow it down so that you have the peace of God and the God of peace, and you're thinking in the middle, that in that you are slowing yourself down, you're breathing, you're getting your feet back underneath you spiritually. You're not choosing on the basis of what you're anxious about. You're choosing on the basis of what is true, what is right, what is pure, what is lovely, what is praiseworthy. That we're choosing and we're making our decisions not out of anxiety, but out of peace. That's our word for today. Thanks so much for joining me, and I'll see you on Sunday.